Welcome back to the Denver Sports Betting Show. I'm your host, Taylor Sadusky. This segment, of course, an amazing partnership with Fan Day Nation, not only giving you the best insight to all things NBA, NFL, NCAA, you name it, but we are building communities and showcasing it to you guys, the fan. New week, new show, and then also a new amazing guest alongside me, Garrett Gibson, Tailgate Sports Co. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Ready to talk some football. It's almost here. It's getting closer. I can feel it in my bones. It gets me excited.
It feels right. I feel like we had a short stint of like sports just on the out during the middle of summer, and it's a little bit of like a depression, I'd say, in a way too. I miss sports. We're working on like negotiating sumo wrestling, all these random events going across overseas. So we'll see what happens now. But with that being said, NFL is back in the swing of things and training camp is underway. So we got to go and talk about our Broncos, the ponies, as haters say. So with that being said, let's get into it. So where did the Broncos leave this season to you, would you say?
I think they overachieved. If we're talking about last season, I think they got to feel pretty good coming into this season. Bo Nix, he looked good, kind of everything we expected of him, plus more. I would say the defense is obviously really elite, arguably the best defense in the league by most people's projections coming into this season. I think Sean Payton in the front office has done a masterful job getting them out of that messy cap situation that they're in with, Russ and kind of rebuilding this roster. I think there's a lot to be excited about for Broncos country coming into 2025.
Exactly. Let's take a quick break here and announce our first amazing sponsor of this segment. We have Gardner Roofing. If you are looking for a roofer company you can trust, Gardner Roofing is Colorado's expert roofing team, family owned and proudly serving the community since 1998, the year I was born, actually. Gardner Roofing is amazing. They don't just build roofs, they build relationships with unmatched craftsmanship, honest pricing, and a team that treats you just like family. It's honestly no wonder customers keep coming back and bringing their friends with them. So if your roof needs some love or you want some advice you can trust, make sure to visit them at gardnerroofs.com or give them a call today, 303-332-6224. Our family has your family covered. Especially, we always film a show when the weather gets a little sketchy outside. So definitely get your roofs prepared out here in Colorado. It could turn south at an instant. Definitely. But talking about training camp too as well, I mean, having a big piece like Bo Nix, having him be on the map in terms of quarterbacks, what is that looking like when it comes to his roster that he built around them? Now having all these new bucks like RJ Harvey, Jahdae Barron, how does that like kind of match up on his film, would you say?
So, I mean, the new pieces are great. If you just look at the Broncos as a whole, so everything starts with their defense, right? And then their second strength is really their offensive line. So structurally, the team, I love how they built it, especially with the additions they made this year in the draft and in free agency. If they are lacking anywhere, I would say it's the offensive skill position players, right? So I know they got Pat Bryant, RJ Harvey in the draft, and they added, J.K. Dobbins, Evan Ingram. They added some pieces there to their offensive skill. But the strength of their team is their O-line and their defense, particularly their run blocking, right? And then their pass defense. So I'm nitpicking here, but if they had to improve anywhere or at any position group, I would say it's their offensive skill position players where they really they tried to address it in the draft. We'll see if these young guys, how they pan out. But that is definitely the weaker part of their team, if you will.
Definitely lacking in those aspects, especially when you're in a stacked conference such as the AFC West. Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, and the Chargers have all added weapons to their roster. How do they stack up in the terms of this whole entire conference, getting to that next level and hopefully competing for a title?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the goal ultimately. And you mentioned the division. This is a very stacked division, arguably the hardest division on all of football. And so I bet mostly for a living. I'm a professional sports bettor. So when I'm talking about expectations or, anything as it relates to sports, I'm talking about it through the lens of the sports betting market.
Logical sense of it,
right?
Definitely.
So when I'm looking at the division, first thing I do is look at the betting odds of the division, and I do think there's some opportunity there. So right now the market, they favor the Chargers over the Broncos in the division. They're the second favorite behind Kansas City to win the division ultimately. And I know there's a lot of hype behind the Chargers this season, and it is warranted. I think they are good. You like the coaching staff. You like what they could do with the run game and their defense, similar to the Broncos. But I do believe the market is overvaluing the Chargers just a bit in the division. So I think the Broncos should be the rightful second favorite in the division. Right now, the Broncos, you could get them at plus 360 odds. I think that's a decent bet, even though it is the toughest division in football. I know a lot of people that are really high on the Broncos, a lot of really sharp professional bettors, and And I'm right there with them because they have all the pieces. Bo Nix coming into year 2. Sean Payton he's probably arguably the best play caller in the NFL. So you really like how they protect the football and how they play defense. So if anyone's going to knock off the Chiefs, I think it's more likely going to be the Broncos than the Chargers in the division.
Does it hurt giving some praise to the ponies when you're a Cowboys fan, or is it?
I'm loyal to my bets more so than my fandom, right? So if there's value out there in the betting market, I place that over anything I care about with my heart as far as fandom goes, for sure.
And how would you say, too, just randomly, like, how does Sean Payton stack up in, like, the coaching realm of, like, you see Pete Carroll coming in the mix, you see, you know, Harbaugh, Andy Reid. How is he comparable, especially, like, in such a tough division, would you say?
Yeah, so, I mean, Sean Payton, I think he's, I wouldn't say undervalued or underrated, because a lot of people know, you know, he's a Super Bowl winning coach. I think the underrated aspect of what he does is, and we've seen it this year and last year, is the team building aspect. Like, he went out on a limb for Bo Nix, and so far he's looked right? Like, that he went and got his guy, and it's worked out. They made the playoffs. And something else about Sean Payton, I saw Colin Cowherd talk about this, and I think he makes a really good point. All of ESPN's analytic writers, they ranked all 32 rosters, right? And this was just a couple of days ago. They ranked the Broncos as the 6th best overall roster. So then you look at the other side of the coin, and he called this the Sean Payton effect, right? And then you look at the worst ranked roster in the league, it's the Saints. Colin Cowherd, he says that's no coincidence. He thinks that's the Sean Payton effect, right? Like, he's a great team builder. And if you look at just 2 years ago, the Broncos' culture was in shambles. They were the offensive line was a mess. The cap situation was a mess with the Russell Wilson contract and how much they overpaid him. And now coming into year 2, the Broncos already have the 6th best roster coming out of that situation. So I think he's super, I don't know if underrated is the right word, but maybe underappreciated in his ability to build organizations on top of being a great play caller. But I think Sean Payton he needs to be up there on the Mount Rushmore of best coaches in the league right now.
I would agree. I think Sean Payton is to the Broncos what Deion Sanders is to Colorado, putting them back on the map and recentering them more in like a positive space too, even since Peyton Manning days, I would say. Horrible stint with Russell Westbrook and other quarterbacks I don't even want to name, but we're on the up this year, so that's really exciting.
Yes, we are.
So when that comes to like looking at set in stone players for the Broncos, who are some of those vets that need to step up in their rooms, both offense, defense? Cortland Sutton, obviously a longtime Bronco out there. What does it have to be like in the terms for like success, would you say? Yeah,
so I mentioned, you know, if they're lacking anywhere, it would be their offensive skill position players, right? And one thing they did to address that is they added veteran tight end Evan Ingram. He's not a Broncos vet, right? But it is his 9th season in the league. I really like that addition because Ingram, he's kind of an underneath guy. He could get open. He could massage the zone, if you will. Like, he knows how to sit in the zone, get open. He's a big body target, which I think that's super helpful for a young quarterback like Bo Nix. I think he's going to get Bo Nix a lot of easy completions early in games and really help him build that confidence. So I think if anyone needs to step up, it's that offensive skill position players, and more specifically Evan Ingram. I think he's going to be a cornerstone of what they're trying to do early in their game plan on offense.
Would you project their defense to do better than their offense this year, would you say?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they most people have them projected as the number 1 defense in the league. Their offense, I personally project them around 18th best. So middle of the pack offense, elite defense. And that's the thing with their offense. Like, it kind of, like, there's upside because Bo Nix, he's coming into his sophomore season, right? So there's still some unknown. Like, he's an older prospect, so you kind of know what you got, but that doesn't mean he's not going to improve, and that doesn't mean there's a further ceiling that he could get to. And that's always been the knock on Bo Nix, is that he doesn't have a very high ceiling, but he has a high floor, right? And that when you have a great defense, that's all you need. You need a high floor. You need someone that's going to be coachable, to do the little things right, to not turn the ball over, and, you know, occasionally use your athleticism to scramble on 3rd down, go get a 1st down like we seen him do last year. So I think he's the perfect fit for this system. And with this coaching staff and this defense, I think, you know, Bo Nix, he should take that next step forward this year.
Completely. Let's go ahead and take a second break of the show real quick. Introduce our next amazing sponsor, Nico Stones. Perfect favorite accessory to any outfit is definitely jewelry, and you know Nico Stones has you covered. They design such timeless, versatile jewelry that stands out, whether you're dressing it up or keeping it casual, from bold bracelets to other rings and such too as well. There's something for every single vibe. Go ahead and tap the link in the description to explore the whole collection. You will not miss out for sure. With that being said, let's continue on and let's get more of like the widespread league as a whole. So when it comes down to placing the AFC West, AFC South, so on and so on, like what divisions are looking like the most promising, would you say? Are the Eagles going to repeat? Are we going to see more of like the Chiefs kind of going downhill? Or are we going to see them just kind of stay up in the mix, would we say?
I mean, that's a good question. And when I look at the league, you know, from the 30,000 foot view, the overall, I think the elite quarterbacks in the AFC make that conference, you know, a gauntlet essentially. Like four of the top five quarterbacks in the NFL are in the AFC. You know, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson.
Stacked, very stacked.
Yeah, so it's tough to get. You know, it's a really top heavy division because when you got to go beat those guys in the playoffs, like it's hard to do. So from a betting standpoint, if you want like a long shot Super Bowl winner, or if you think someone's going to come from the clouds or something unpredictable is going to really happen, I would look more towards the NFC, just because, like I said, the AFC, they have that bedrock of just elite quarterback play. So I know we mentioned I'm a Cowboys fan, but the Cowboys are 70-1 to win the Super Bowl. If things go right for them, you know, it was just 2 years ago when Dak Prescott, he was the favorite to be the MVP, so he could reawaken that. They added George Pickens to pair with CeeDee Lamb, and then you have arguably the best defensive player in the league on the other side of the ball with Micah Parsons. There's some upside there, and the NFC, I want to call it fractured because there's still a lot of good teams in the NFC as well, but I just think it's more open for an underdog to kind of like show shine bright on the conference, if you will, more so in the NFC than the AFC. So Cowboys 70-1, that's a huge price. I don't think it should be that long. San Francisco 49ers, they're a team that everyone's kind of down on after the season they had last year. But I still think with the coaching, and I'm a Brock Purdy believer, they still have a lot of great weapons. I think they could kind of make something shake there in the NFC. They're 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think those, if you're looking for a long shot, I would look towards the NFC. Because the AFC, like I said, it's just so top heavy with those elite quarterbacks.
So out of both the AFC and NFC, what is the team that you think is so underrated right now that's coming in the mix? Like I thought last year, the Commanders came in and just like blew the smoke out of people for sure. So who's going to replicate that kind of intentions, would you say?
That's a good question.
There's a lot of options, honestly, this year. They picked up some good roster movements on like the draft and moving teams for sure.
I think there's a good chance. Like if we're talking about maybe not coming out of nowhere like the Commanders did, but if we're talking about like most like improvement, right? I think the Chicago Bears could be interesting this year. I'm a big believer in their new head coach, Ben Johnson, what he'll be able to do with Caleb Williams, who I think is still a special talent. They addressed their offensive line, which was their downfall last year. Like he was just running around with a chicken with his head cut off. Like he had no support from his offensive line last year. So it's hard to do anything when no one blocks for you. And I think they got that figured out a little bit. They have all the weapons. They have all the pieces on defense to have really good unit on that side of the ball. So, you know, their downfall is they do also play in a very tough division right there in the NFC North. So I think they have the pieces. I don't know if it'll be year one, but I think if we're talking strictly most improved team from last year, I think the Bears got to be near the top of that list.
Okay, that's interesting. That's super cool. And then in terms of like having like a deep playoff run and not quite make it into the finals, but just like really just improving and showcasing their skills, who do you think takes that spot? Options are endless, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to who gets hot at the right time, like we saw with the Giants back in their heyday when they went out and won 2 Super Bowls. By no means were they the best team. They just got hot at the right time. For me, everyone, like I said, I would probably just have to say it's the 49ers just because their schedule breaks pretty easily. They have one of the easiest schedules, especially their second half of the schedule is really easy. So I could see them getting into the playoffs, winning the division, having some momentum. And, you know, the Eagles are the class of the NFC, the Super Bowl winners from last year. They still have a really strong roster. So if anyone's going to, you know, make a run in the playoffs and knock the Eagles out of the NFC, I do think it's most likely the 49ers. So it's not much of a sleeper because they are the favorites to win their division. But that's kind of who I would see just based on their schedule, especially the later half in the season, to kind of get hot and go on a run there.
Gotcha. And then just to leave us for a little bit here, do you have an NFL hot take that you can give us?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier with the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm going to go right back to it. Bear with me, So 30-1 long shot. That means you bet $1, you win 30. You bet 100, you win, $3,000. So 30-1 Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC. The Commanders, who you mentioned earlier, they're only 9-1 to win the NFC. I don't think there's that big of a gap between the Commanders roster and the Cowboys roster. Like I said, it was less than 2 years ago. Dak Prescott, he still's got the juice. He was favorite to be the MVP late in the season. Things didn't break right for him, but I still think he's an elite quarterback. He's coming off an injury, a lot of upside there. I just think everyone's kind of writing them off. Cowboys fan, every year it's our year, every year it's our year. I haven't heard too much of that this year, right? Everyone's like, we're not going to be that good. Well, maybe this is the year they actually make some movement happen in the NFC since it is more open than the AFC. So my hot take would be the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC at 30-1.
You heard it here first. That's a tricky one for sure too. But if it happens, you know who told you first. Garrett right here. With that being said, thank you guys again for tuning in. It's another amazing show, Denver Sports Betting. I'm your host, Taylor Sadusky. Thank you, Garrett, for being on with me today. Shout out your social media real quick here.
Yeah, just Instagram, Tailgate Sports Co. We make funny memes. We give good betting content. And then if you want to get day-to-day updates, Garrett Gibson _ on X. I talk, live betting and a bunch of other stuff. Our goal is to, make you laugh and make you money.
There you go. And he does both of that really, really well. So with that being said, we will see you guys next week. Thank you.